Good evening and welcome to The Big Picture. I'm Tracy Shilshi, and today we're going to try and solve the railways mystery. It's been crying out for help for decades, but despite the huge allocation of funds that it gets each year, the lifeline of India continues to suffer. However, now a government panel set up to study the restructuring of railways has set a 5-year roadmap to bring in new reforms. Will this mean more privatization? And do we see the eventual phasing out of the annual railways budget? To discuss this, we have this evening on our panel, we've got SK Sarkar, the chairman of the Economic Affairs Committee at the PhD Chambers. We've got Shiv Gopal Mishra here, General Secretary of the All India Railwaymen's Federation, and also senior journalist Ravi Shankar Kapoor with us. We'll also be hopefully joined by Mr. Malhotra, the ex-chairman of the Railway Board, in a bit. But for the moment, if I could first come to you, Mr. Sarkar. The report, in fact, is to be submitted today to the government. And one of the key features that we are seeing, at least according to media reports, is that perhaps there's going to be a suggestion of more private players.
Yes, but obviously, as you said in the beginning, there are a lot of financial issues which have to be sorted out first. We do not have the proper infrastructure to go ahead with what we should be doing with railways. It's the largest employer in the world, and yet things are not moving as they should be because I'll give you a very simple example. The railway minister just said that he's not going to spend a penny over 30,000 crores on electricity. Now, that I don't think is a statement which should be made because if you're spending more on utilities, obviously you are progressing somewhere. So you're trying to move a step forward. So those kind of things will always happen. But and then we have to look at the railways as it stands today. If you look at your railway platforms, they're actually relics from the British Raj, and you have these railway platforms which were actually built for steam engines, not for the current fleet that you have. So if you consider all those factors, so there's a lot of work to be done, and how far you will succeed is something which we need to see how far we can move forward. Now, then there's this question of convergence of the rail budget with the union budget. Now, of course, I am not against that because this rail budget was formulated by the British at a time when railways was obviously a very major factor for them, and it had to be a separate entity by itself. But today, if you merge the two, there will be difficulties in the sense that I'm just talking about some problems which might arise. Obviously, we will have to find solutions to those because when you have these subsidizations which take place in the passenger rail fares, so that gets translated into the general budget. And if it goes to the general budget, so then the states will have to share a part of that subsidy. And how amenable the states would be to that kind of a situation is a bit of a question mark. And then there are issues like you have small issues like parcels. Now, every express or every premium train that you have has a parcel van. But would it amaze you to know that, or would it surprise you to know that the parcel tracking system works only on the Delhi-Hooghly system? It doesn't work on anywhere else, not even Delhi-Mumbai or Delhi-Bangalore or anywhere. Now, if you have that kind of a tracking system, and today...
It is perhaps because of little problems, like not little, of course, big problems like these, perhaps there was a need to come up with a report like this, and perhaps the 5-year term of setting up a restructuring. Mr. Mishra, I do understand you, though, have huge problems with this report.
Actually, during last 10 years, you can say last 15 years, even in the past when NDA government was there, the Rakeshwan Committee for railway restructuring was brought in.
But they wanted full privatization.
More than 60% things which have been said by Dr. Vivek Devaraya Committee is almost the same. This is a cut-paste report of the many reports which in the recent past had been brought. My observation at the outset is that whatever report has been given, that may be of the academic interest, but it will not be possible to enforce it or implement it in the practical way because railway is a robust organization.
Are you saying that the unions are not going to allow it to make it work?
So many things they have said, many places they have their own contradictions in the report. Once they say that it should be implemented in such a way that these private players should be allowed. On the other hand, they say that the regulator should be there. They say that the safety, who will be responsible for the safety? Nobody says that who will be responsible for the safety. So, for the foreign railways where the volume of the traffic is less, these all things are possible. But the Indian Railways, which has a 2 crore and 50 lakh passengers every day, 22,000 pairs of the trains every day, such a report what he has given, I don't think that will be possible. And on the same track, the private player will also have their trains, and the railway will also have their trains. 50% of the traffic route is the have congestion of more than 150%. We are unable to push our trains on the same track. So that is not possible. I believe if Dr. Vivek Devaraj should have said that there should have been for increasing the capacity augmentation, more connectivity, if somebody, private player should have pushed their money, they have made the track and some structure like that should have been, then that should have been appreciated. But I don't think that this report in the form what he has been given today, that is not going to be implementable.
Can I ask a question of Mr. Mishra, because he understands the railways very well. Sir, how would you look at that track management system? How will it work if the private players come in and we have these super fast trains being run by some of the known industrial houses? How will the track and how will the regulator take a stand? Because you see, it's not like telecom. It's telecom. You give spectrum to somebody, so that particular spectrum is his or hers, and they can work on that. Here, the tracks are common. So what happens? How will the tracks be able to accommodate all these private trains, which is being proposed in the report?
Sarkar, that is the reason that in the past so many budget there had been honestly the railway tried that we should have some PPP project and all that. This is not that this is the first time they are trying. They tried in budget after budget, they tried that. Because of all these things what you mentioned, this has not been possible. We don't have any clear policy. Here the track is maintained by the railways. And on that same track, the signalling is maintained by the railways. All the operational things are being maintained by the railways. So on the same track, if you want that some private player should also run their train, that is not possible.
All right, I need to bring in Mr. Malhotra at this point of time, joining us from the capital as well. Mr. Malhotra, would you agree to what Mr. Mishra has to say? Everything seems to be very on the surface, these suggestions, but if you actually break it down and you see, they don't seem very practical on the ground.
I will not say so. Most of the recommendations which have been given now are toned down version of the earlier reports, which were more towards the privatization. But here they have asked for, or they are trying to privatize, or they are trying to have private personnel working with the railway in only those areas where there have been experiments in the world and where it is possible. In fact, many of these recommendations, even the railway board, when I was the chairman railway board, at that time we gave many of these recommendations, like what has been written about the health provisions, about the workshops, you see, schools, the things which are not the main duty or main purpose of running the trains. They can always be privatized. They can always be given to or converted into different units, not directly under the Ministry of Railways or not connected with the working of the railways. Now, as far as this running of private trains on the railway tracks is concerned, here the problem is not as to how they will run. You see, there is a provision, or it is possible to work out as to what should be their access charges. That is how much excess charge the railway can take from those people who will run trains on the railway tracks which are maintained by the railways themselves. But the problem is otherwise, that is because wherever there is need for running such trains, there is no path available, there is no space available. So as has been rightly said by someone there, that I do not see also in this recommendation the main thing which is required, that is how the capacity is going to be augmented, from where that money is going to come. And they are talking of the social charges in the form of 25,000 crores. Why social charges should burden the budget, whether it is central budget or it is the railway budget? Why should we not gradually bring the passenger fares to a level where the people are prepared to pay? When we have been talking to people, even after I have retired 12 years back, I have been talking to various people outside the railways. They are prepared to pay because everything else has gone up. Now from here I go to in first AC to Saharanpur. I pay more for the taxi charges up to the station than I pay for the train itself. So those social charges have to come down, instead of saying that there should be separate provision for meeting with the social charges from the central ministry and all that.
All right. So for this particular purpose itself, maybe that is why a need of a regulator is important. Ravi, give us a sense. What are you getting according to the reports that you've been reading up? Does this seem like something which eventually the Narendra Modi government can go ahead with?
Yes, about regulator, yes. Regulator, of course, earlier also we have heard about the necessity or the need of a regulator, and that is but that is one of the requirements. There are many others. Mishra ji rightly said that this report is I mean, this repeats many of the things which were said earlier, and he's also right to the extent that the recommendations will be very difficult to implement. But these implementations have to be implemented because there is no way out. How do you do that? So there will be resistance not only from the unions but also political opposition. So that the government has to take care of, and it will be, you see, everybody knows what is to be done. It's not that Vivek Debroy report is not some sort of revelation.
Yes, in fact, if you just see some of the
Rakesh Mohan committee report,
there are some things which we ourselves,
economic survey,
would come up with these
survey that comes out every year, planning commission reports. So these are not, this is not something unheard of. So basically it's doing. So, I mean, it will depend upon how the government does it. One good thing is, as in this budget, the railway minister did not go for populist measures, no more trains, grand announcements which never see the light of the day. So those things are not there. That's good. And I mean, it has to be more bolder. The decisions, everybody knows, private sector participation. By the way, this report is not for the privatization of railways.
Yes.
This is for more private sector participation. There's a difference. So, and private sector participation does wonders. Telecom is one example. There are many other examples also. So, it has to be there. There have to be more private sector players. That's one thing. Second thing is, the exchequer, there's no point in burdening the exchequer with the requirements. There's gross overstaffing. All these things are known. So, the need of the hour actually is decision, bold decisions.
Yes. And how to implement them, and if it will be allowed to be
first of all, there have to be decisions.
Yes,
there will be decisions, there will be a lot of resistance from the entire political class, not just from the opposition, from the entire, even from the ruling party.
Mr. Mishra, one of the...
And from intellectuals, from opinion makers, because they are still in that socialist mold, most of them. So that has to be tackled. So if you can do that, I mean, the government can do that. I mean, railways can become a big, I mean, it itself can give a big boost to the economy.
Mr. Mishra, I was saying that, you know, successive governments have actually not increased passenger fares actually. But then as such, it has starved the railways of much investment, in result also affecting salaries of those working within the railways. For this one, the report in fact saying it's wanting to phase out the RPF to some extent. These are suggestions which of course unions will not agree with.
Actually, I don't think when we met this committee members, we told them that actually there is some need that we should have a unified system for the security. We have two types of the security system on our Indian Railways. One is the GRP, the other is the RPF. So this dual system can be, we can do away with this system by evolving some system that some power of the CRPC by changing the act can be given to the RPF. So that can suffice the thing. But just just throw away to RPF or do away with the RPF, it is not possible, because the RPF is the one force which is, we have 68,000 kilometer railway lines, 7,000 railway stations, 22,000 pairs of the train every day. So for all these things, it is always necessary that some force, dedicated force must be there. So I don't think this very seriously the people have taken this decision, and the private security cannot handle all these things. Private security can handle the DRM office, the general manager office, some small sort of things. But the big depots where the crores and crores of the stores are there, that has to be maintained by some of the force. Similarly, they have said that the schools, this your medical services, these all should be, can be given to the private sector, or some other arrangement should be done. I don't think that will be possible. We have 13,26,000 dedicated people, those who are dedicating their lives. Anil Kakotkar committee has said that 1,600 railwaymen, more than 1,600 railwaymen every year used to live their lives while running and operating our trains. So people don't have time for their children. So who will take care of them, their children? So until and unless they make some arrangement for the education of the railway employees, they should have to contain with the schools and all that. We should not think sometime railway minister comes like Mamata Banerjee, who says that there should be the dedicated medical college, nursing colleges, engineering college, polytechnic, ITI, everything for the railwayman's daughter. Sometimes somebody comes and he says that nothing should be with the government. So these are political things, and as a union we can say that we are going to oppose all these things. We will not tolerate that whatsoever we have, somebody should know what is right from.
You see, the report does not say that these benefits will be taken away from the railway personnel. It's not that, it's not for doing away with social security measures, education, health. It only says that railways should do what they ought to do. That's running trains. Running schools, hospitals is not their core competence and should not be their core competence. I don't think there's anything objectionable in it, and I don't think there can be a valid reason why unions should be opposed to it. I mean, if they are not saying that there won't be any medical facility. No, there won't be. I mean, those benefits won't be there. It's just asking a department to get more focused. That's it. So there's nothing objectionable.
Ravi, I will take 1 minute only. We have no objection to the report. Up to and unless you are going to say something which can encourage the railwaymen, motivate the railwaymen, by their motivating, the railwaymen could increase their productivity. You know that in nowadays we have 7,000 stations. The people are working on the line, between the line, where in 10, 14 kilometers we have no schools. So for those places we have some schools.
No. The point's not that
they say
they're not saying they would take out those schools. They're just saying those schools.
It's not that those children will go uneducated.
If a private player comes in and the railways just concentrates on the railways.
Core competence.
And yes. Mr. Sarkar, you were saying something.
Yeah, I just wanted to invite the panelists' attention to the subsidization that we have, in which the rail freight actually subsidizes the passenger freight.
Cross-subsidization.
Well, yes. So it's not, it's just one way. It's just a one-way thing which is happening right through. Now, if we look at the transport picture as a whole, you will find that, let's look at waterways. I mean, I'm digressing a little, but I'll come back to the point that I'm making. So if you look at, you have about navigable waters of about 4,382 kilometers right now, which is about, you got five rivers which have been declared as national waterways. The present government says that they're going to declare another 101 rivers as national waterways. You got, of course, the national highways, which is the road, and
yes,
of course, you got the railways. Now, why can't we have an integrated system, all the three? And if we do that, because if you look at the statistics, 1 ton of transportation costs by highways, by road, is rupees 2.6, as against 1.4 for railways and 1.1 for the waterways. Now, you have to have, if we have an integrated system, it brings down the cost, and as also the customer is also benefited in the sense that obviously whenever, I mean, you can't have a straight road going right up to his place, or have a straight railway line going up to his place, or just a river which goes right up to his place. So it has to be a combination of all three, and if you can work out on that basis, it will bring down the bring down your transport costs, and at the same time, it will give a lot of comfort to the customer, who will I think benefit greatly out of this system. The waterways, unfortunately, has not developed in this country, which needs to develop. We're carrying just 0.3% of the ferry, of the inland ferry.
All right, some valid suggestions.
So that if a combination takes place, I am very sure that this will not only be give a lot of comfort to the ultimate customer, the consumer,
the commuters,
but at the same time, the costs will also come down.
All right, Mr. Malhotra, any last words would you like to say, especially about this report not getting implemented today or tomorrow? It is going to be a 5-year, a plan. But still, are you hopeful that this is perhaps the right track on which the railways should go?
Yes, I would say that about 60% of these recommendations will get accepted and can be implemented. But there may be some which there will be some resistance from the politicians, or some resistance from the unions, or some resistance from the cadres of the railways. So those will depend upon what decision is taken. Because, for example, the restructuring of the Group A cadre of the railways, now that itself by itself cannot be done, because these cadres are connected with the All India cadres. The engineering cadre is connected with the All India engineering cadres of P&T, of MES, etc., etc. Similarly, the civil side cadres are connected with the other allied services cadres of the IS and all that. So it is that restructuring by itself that may pose many problems, I don't know. And in any case, the details are also not yet available as to what they have recommended for that cadre restructuring. Similarly, for the railway board restructuring, what they have suggested is not known. Only when the details come, we will be able to know as to whether that is implementable or is not implementable. Because as far as the railway board restructuring is concerned, here again, I think for last 25-30 years, I have seen many reports in which these recommendations have been done by various people, but none of them was found to be implementable.
Okay. Okay, I think, gentlemen, that's about the time that I do have here on the panel. Thank you so much for joining me. But I think we all do agree railways does need an overhaul, a big one. Like you mentioned, some bold steps it does require. Will this report again be washed out like the other ones? We'll have to wait and see. But by the indications that we're getting, at least, seems to be that this is perhaps going to be one report where some of the measures could be implemented. We'll have to wait and see eventually what the Narendra Modi government does with this report, of course, being headed by Vivek Dev Roy. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us here on The Big Picture. The news continues after a break. Do stay with us.